Ladies and gentlemen, our program is about to begin. Please take your seats.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you've had a chance to explore the aisles. And I just have a quick question. Who was here from this morning's session that's here today? So just a raise of hands. Well, I quizzed you in the morning, so I'm going to quiz you now. Gentleman in the corner in the suit, in the gray coat. I talked about 4 things we're here to do at a trade show. Do you remember what those 4 things are? Anyone? Anyone who was here? Network was one. Fun was one. See new product was the other. What's the other one that you're missing? To learn. And this afternoon session is all about learning. Many of you know Joe Derochowski, who's the home industry advisor for Circana. Joe is a good friend, as is the crew from Circana of the IHA and Homepage News, which is the B2B publication that I am happy to be editor-in-chief of. So you'll see coverage of the show and these sessions on homepagenews.com. Joe has been speaking for the industry. Joe, how many years now have you been in this industry? 11 years. I first saw Joe Derochowski speak, and I didn't know who he was, at the Tabletop Show in New York. And I'd had a couple drinks, I'm pretty sure, when I heard him speak. But I said to myself, I'm going to do business with him. I'm going to work with him. I'm a content guy. And what I liked about Joe was that Joe brings what we do, he makes common sense out of it. He's an advisor for one of the largest market research companies in our industry, one of the largest analytics companies in our industry. But you know him as a home and housewares expert. What you may not know is that Circana covers a broad range of consumer products industries. So when I challenged Joe, who's been a keynote speaker here for many years, he speaks at all of our events, I challenged Joe to give the audience at the Inspired Home Show something a little different this year. Not that we don't like what he normally does, but let's try to shake it up. So he came up with an idea. Let's find a way to engage the industry experts at Circana in a variety of businesses, a variety of industries. So we can hear what they're hearing, what they're learning, what their businesses are telling them, and maybe there's something the home and housewares business can learn from them. Joe's going to share this today in an unusual sort of multimedia experience. So bear with us. We're going to be going in and out of video. I promise you, Joe is not an AI reproduction of himself right now. Are you? Okay. But with that, we're in for a treat today. Let me introduce Joe Derochowski to the stage.
Thank you, Peter. If I was an AI, I'd be much skinnier. That would be the choice right there. Boy, you know, you talked about why we have this event. I always get so excited this first day. It feels like your first day of college again. You get to see a bunch of whole new friends and just experience things. So I really am grateful for you guys taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. This can be fun. We're going to start with a quote. You know, there's a colleague of mine who used to always start all of his presentations with this quote from a Nobel Prize winner, but I always loved it because it said, "The purpose of research is to see what everyone else sees, but to think what no one else thinks." And I love this quote because what we're going to do today is we're going to go across and listen what is driving the growth areas within different industries. And by doing this, what you're going to hear is who the consumer is. You're going to see you're going to have a portrait of who they are and what are the current needs driving their business. And in hopes that either through marketing or through new products, that there's going to be a way that you can tap into what these needs are. So it should be fun. But before starting, let's do a little bit of grounding. We do a forecast, and you're the first group to see this. We do a forecast every year of 160 plus categories of what do we anticipate the year being. And we are on a growth run right now. We are expecting that units to grow 1% this year. Yeah, I understand the news. But we grew pretty strong the past year. Already this year, we're up 3% for small appliances just through the 22nd of February. We're one of those things where we have a chance to grow. But more importantly, 28, 29, and 30, we also have a chance. So it's important from an innovation perspective that we continue to press the button for new product innovation, that we continue to press the button for marketing innovation. And so from today's meeting, hopefully you have something that spurs a creative thought so you can see the world as it is and think of a new way to do it. All right, so with that, I have several colleagues of mine who are going to be sharing what's driving their industry. I recommend everybody follow them on LinkedIn. They're great people to follow, and they put good content up there. But let's start with right here. The first person that we're going to hear from is Don Unser. He's the president of our thought leadership. He goes across all industries. He speaks almost 200 times a year to the CEOs of all the retailers as well as the manufacturers, helping them with their long-range planning, their investor calls in those areas. But I asked him the question, what are going to be the big drivers of retail? And he's talking to his people that he talks to. What are the big drivers? Let's listen to what he has to say, because I think it sets up what we're going to hear the rest of today. Ken?
The good news is our consumer is out there spending and still spending at a pretty good clip throughout retail. They are still prioritizing in a need-based state. And we are still in an inflationary environment. And I think that's kind of the first place you want to start with the consumer. And we're seeing the trade-off still happen in terms of what they have to spend on food versus what they can spend on discretionary categories in general merchandise. So one of the predictions that Marshall Cohen and I are looking at 4 or 5 predictions we just published last week is that we expect general merchandise to come back into a more of a prioritization of the consumer. And that's going to play out well for your industry, I think, Joe. I know you're all about having a very optimistic view for the consumer and for the industry. So we expect some of these demand cycles to come back. So things that were bought at the beginning of the pandemic, we've worn those things out and we need to repurchase those. So I imagine that plays out in multiple categories in your space that you're helping clients with right now. Couple of other areas that we're thinking about, we do expect there to be some disruption to the e-commerce space. You know, if you think about the biggest disruption we had Amazon, we had the retailer.coms, then we had the marketplaces. Well, the marketplaces are about to feel some disruption. And you've got TikTok Shop, you've got the other platforms like Temu, Shein, and others coming online. That's going to allow small startup brands to get scale very, very fast, and the fire to be the flames to be fanned. There we go, by social media, which is being looked at by many consumers, and talking about demand. So one last piece I would say that we're looking at is the hyper personalization. Marshall and I get asked all the time, where are the areas that AI is going to really showcase in retail? Where will the consumer feel AI? And they'll feel it in supply chain, they'll feel it when you call in for support for things, but we're definitely going to feel it in everything that comes to us is going to be very personalized to us. So if you're a member of any loyalty club that a retailer can use that data, or a manufacturer that has a big loyalty database, there's so much known that AI, I think, is going to unlock in terms of showcasing more very personalized things to individual consumers or households. I think that's going to be an unlock in 25 as well. So there's 3 or 4 for you to think about. Yeah, I think.
So what's interesting to me with this is several things with the online and the AI, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But the one that I really want you to pay attention to is that we are in a needs-based purchasing. So is that a feature? Could be. But when you think of needs-based, it really is, what is the pain or frustration or wish that I have in using your product? Or what is the pain or frustration or wish that I have in the moment of using the product? And so I think it's very important to be listening for what are these subtleties. So as we start to go through the other advisors, you're going to hear people talk about ways that AI is impacting how we shop. You're going to hear about e-commerce being disrupted, not knowing what Don had said. This is just happening organically. You're going to hear about personalization and how this is playing out. But the other thing I want you to listen for is listen for the descriptive words. Listen for the adjectives and the adverbs that they're using to describe the drivers that they have for the industry, because that's something, if you can build it in your marketing, you might be able to move from just a feature to a need. All right, so the next person I want to talk about, so Don goes across all industries. The rest of us were kind of focused. I'm focused on home. Paul Gagnon is focused on our tech industry. Think TVs, computers, and those areas. And I want to start with him because that industry is very much like ours. We're very, very similar. From 2014 to 2019, we were always battling out as the number 1 or 2 places for where people were spending money. Similar to us, we had huge sales, 4 years worth of sales happen in 2020 and 2021. And so we've been dealing with a little bit of pull forward, but also similar to us, since June of this year, we've seen growth of 2024. So let's see what they're doing.
What's driving that growth? It's the replacement cycle. If we look at products like notebook PCs and tablets, those really showed strong growth at the end of the year because people need to replace them. Things like the batteries are worn out, or the processors and the memory can't keep up with new technologies like AI capabilities. So people started to refresh those products based on their usable life cycle. That was a big driver. The second thing that really kind of drove the industry and particular categories, I look at something like digital cameras. Digital cameras was a category that, a lot of people thought was dead or dying because look, we all have great smartphones with cameras built into them. But we saw growth starting early last year and really accelerating through much of the year last year around things like action cameras, digital, point and shoot cameras, even like really affordable, inexpensive digital point and shoot cameras. That has me thinking people are looking for something different. The young digital TikTok generation are all about creativity, but I think also authenticity. And that seems to be underpinning some of these interesting little micro trends within the tech category. And I look at something like digital imaging as being kind of the highlight of that. What role can innovation play in spurring that upgrade activity or the refresh cycle? And tablets is a really good example of that. Back in May, Apple refreshed their iPad lineup. And the install base of tablets, which is a fairly mature category of products now, is quite large. And it was getting old. There are a lot of devices that are going on 6, 7, 8 years old. And after a period of time, the battery doesn't last quite so long. Maybe the performance doesn't work quite as well with the newer generation of products. But consumers were willing to just kind of say, a little bit longer. I'll postpone the replacement of this. Well, the refresh in the lineup that Apple did back in May was pretty substantial. New display technologies, much more advanced capabilities to take advantage of things like AI in the products, and consumers responded strongly. And we've had solid double-digit growth in that category from May clear through the end of the year. But underlying that replacement is the innovation that kind of kickstarted that upgrade cycle. AI is, as an analyst, I've seen lots of different trends come and go. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was all about the internet connected device, right? And that evolved into the smart device, right? And pretty soon everything became smart, right? And it can be overused a little bit, but when it comes to AI, I really believe that artificial intelligence or AI has the ability to be as revolutionary in a lot of our industries as the internet was back in the 1990s. The challenge is, and the thing that I talk to my clients about and the industry about is, when you say AI, what do you mean? What exactly is the AI-ness of this product that you're trying to sell? And that's a hard question for a lot of companies to answer, because AI is a very hot buzzword right now. But I think and by the way, depending on the demographic that you're talking to, it can be a good thing or a bad thing. So understanding which consumer you're talking to will shape how you should message the AI capability. Because let's just face it, AI functionality is coming to a lot of products, maybe even most products. But there are benefits and different kinds of benefits depending on how you implement AI in a device. And so my message to a lot of companies, including maybe some of those in your audience, is think carefully about what do you mean when you say AI capability is built into this product. Is it saving you time? Is it saving you money? Is it making your product more efficient? Is it making you more efficient, right? There are different ways to message the capabilities of AI, and how we do that is going to have a really big impact on whether consumers readily adopt it, are willing to pay more for it, or whether they shun it and they stay away from it. So be really careful about what you mean when you say AI to a consumer.
There's a lot there. I realize we'll talk a little bit about each of those. One of them is we are in the replacement cycle. There is no doubt since June, these high frequency use products that we have are in the replacement, and it's driving the growth that we're seeing today. And that should continue as we go forward. We bought 4 years worth of stuff in 2020, it continues. So how do you think about the high frequency use? The number of foods you eat for breakfast tends to be about this much. Number of foods you eat for lunch is a little bit more. The number of foods for dinner, main dish, is bigger. Side dish, smaller. The appetizer. So think of those products that are high frequency use. I guarantee you we're hitting a replacement phase. And it's going to be related to a lot of those areas. The question is, now that they've had them, what's the new set of I wish, I hate that the consumer's feeling? Can we solve those? Can we have them upgrade at that time? The second thing, he talked about the micro trends. And this is a subtlety from a marketing perspective, using social media. Even he had the digital cameras where we as a consumer get to tell our story. What are you doing to try to get the consumer to tell their story utilizing your product? If you can do, you're going to generate tremendous demand. The other part is from an innovation perspective, a lot of times we don't need the home runs. Some singles, some of these little things, these little micro trends can create some advantages that what we have. So I want us to be thinking about those areas. Now from an AI perspective, you'll hear others play out, but I would ask this, and those of you who do concept testing, you understand, is AI a benefit? Now when we tried to market smart, we tried to think of it as a benefit. It's not. It's a reason to believe, to solve a pain or frustration or a wish. So I think it's going to be the same thing with AI. We have to make sure it's not a benefit. It's a reason to believe, to solve a pain or frustration or wish that we have. Okay. So the next one that we want to talk about is David Portelet. And so David is, went ahead there. David is our food expert. He speaks to all the major restaurateurs, as well as all the major food manufacturers in studying eating. What David's going to share with you, in my opinion, so we've talked about singles, a little bit with the microtrends. If you're looking for the next home run, he's going to tell you what the problem is. I don't know what the product is, but I'm hoping you can listen, because it is the thing that is on the horizon. And it's in front of us right now. So let's listen to what David's got to say.
Well,
Plus, he's going to give one of the drivers.
We're giving a little bit more share of both our dollars and our consumption at home through the fourth quarter of 2024. As you know, again, consumers are looking to save a little money. We're really rationalizing our food dollar, and so that translates into eating a little bit more at home. It's about 4 times more expensive per occasion to go outside the home than in home. So when people are really motivated by saving a little, we're looking for ways to prepare more meals at home. But, Joe, at the same time, that doesn't mean that we have all the time in the world to, get out our Escoffier method cookbook and, spend all day in the kitchen. So people are looking for help. They want solutions. They want things that are easy. That can come in a couple of forms. That can be, things that are heat and eat types of items. And I always tell food manufacturers, these are the things that you would throw into an air fryer, a toaster oven, a microwave, things that are a fairly convenient at-home solution. But Joe, the other thing is, think about what's more convenient than doing that, and those are just ready-to-eat foods. Things that you would open the bag, the box, take the lid off the jar. And so we're sort of seeing the snackification across a lot of day parts where whether it's breakfast, lunch, or even dinner, people are turning to what you and I might traditionally call snack foods to serve as eating occasions. And so convenience is really important. People want to eat a little bit more at home. They need help to do so. If I were to have to summarize it in a nutshell, that would be it. I mean, I've been talking all year long about this idea of day part disruption, which sounds big and scary. So let me be clear. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner will always describe the majority of our eating occasions. But since 2019, the rhythms of our day are different. We go to work some days, we don't go to work some days. The days we do go to work, the hours may look different. You have, as a result, what I call these emerging moments throughout the day. I describe it this way. It's Wednesday. Everybody's in the office today. We got up really early today, more so than on other days, and we made the commute. We got to the office. It's 10:30 in the morning. Whatever we had for breakfast isn't getting the job done. We've got a meeting calendar that's stacked, and now I need to reach into my desk drawer, my backpack, my briefcase, run down to the company cafeteria, whatever it is, because I need something, because my stomach is growling. So consumers don't know what to call that. Is it a second breakfast? Is it a mid-morning snack? Is it brunch? Is it lunch? Because, by the way, we're going to have to skip lunch today. We don't know what to call it, but we need something. And then conversely, that same day, we've been running around and we're in meetings, and we look up and it's 2:30 and we haven't had lunch yet. And we're all going together to the big company happy hour at 4 o'clock. So I can't really go out for a traditional lunch, but yeah, I need something. And so I think you're seeing incrementally around the edges these emerging moments throughout the day where the consumer needs to have some kind of eating occasion. And as marketers, we love to name and label things so that we can measure it. So we like to call certain things lunch and certain foods lunch foods. But the consumer is really just saying, I'm hungry. What time is it? What resources and time do I have at my disposal? And how do I meet my needs in a moment? And so they're looking at a diversity of different foods at different times of the day to solve for those needs. Manufacturers are looking, how do we gain accessibility to the consumer where they are, when they need.
So this day part disruption is a critical thing, because what runs parallel to this, having studied eating habits since I've been doing it since 98, or looking at our data all the way since 1980 during this period, is we still want some sort of routine. But how do you do it on days you're in the office versus days you're not? How do you, if you're trying, we got over 40% of the population seeking more protein. How are you going to do that on days you're traveling to the office? What's going to be your mid-morning snack? How does that blending of breakfast and how that goes together as a change? You're going to be looking for something sweet at around 3 o'clock, and you're going to be thinking, how do I do something at that period? So this tension of a desire of a routine, whether protein, vegetarianism, I'm gluten allergy, I'm dealing with some sort of medical issue, that desire, but our time is going to be disruptive. And so how do we solve it? We see a few things here recently. You see the portable blenders. That's been solving some of that. You see some of the heated lunch things, think of Crock-Pot Express and things along that nature, that are solving lunch that used to be a cold sandwich differently. But as we start to do these things and we have this day part disruption, what's going to happen? And there's a new set of needs that is out there. And as we return to the office more frequently and it starts to become more systemic, there's going to be a new solution that we're going to have to solve, as well as the food companies. I don't know what it is, but what I do know is there's big money there. Okay. Next, speaking of return to office, so Kristen is our industry advisor for apparel. And I think it's interesting what she talks about when we return to the office, some of the challenges and what that does to our wardrobe, but also kind of what it does to our cabinets in our kitchen. I want us to be thinking about that. In addition, while we have over 60% of small appliances are sold online and higher 50% for housewares, for apparel it's only 30%. So I want you to listen to what she's saying is going to change that.
If we do think pre-pandemic, we had these certain wardrobes for each parts of our life. You know, I have my office wardrobe, which is, you know, business professional, business casual. I have what I wear to lounge around the house. I have what I wear to go out with friends. These separate wardrobes, it created a bigger overall need. Now, since COVID, many of us are working remotely, hybrid, that those wardrobe needs have blended into one need. You know, I'm not buying a pair of pants or a suit for the office, but I'm buying a pair of wide leg casual pants that I can wear to the office, I can wear with sneakers, I can wear out with friends, and they're comfortable enough to wear at home. So these needs have kind of created this blending of needs has created a blended wardrobe. So if we do get back to the office, if we see more of that next year, I don't think we're going to return to, again, I have my office wardrobe, I've got my home loungewear. It's going to just be continuation of those blended needs. So we're likely going to see more of the same, you know, wide leg casual pants. Comfort is still going to be so important. You know, blazers, a lot of these categories that have been doing well, I think are going to continue to do well versus a resurgence of this overall, you know, office professional attire. So we recently did a poll and we found that 1 out of 4 18 to 54-year-olds said they would shop more often for apparel online if they can get more personalized recommendations based off of their body types. Now think of the implications here. You're cutting down search time, you're mitigating returns, a lot of the pain points, you know, abandoning things in the cart, a lot of the pain points that retailers and brands are feeling. So I think it has the opportunity to really personalize based off of your body and fit, which has been a barrier for apparel, personalizing that experience. Another aspect of that is personalizing searches. So if we think now how trends are going, you know, I talked about social media and all of these very specific cores and trends, you know, mob wife core, it's these really interesting trends that are happening. Now, if you have the ability, if you have something very specific in mind that you're looking for, to just type in, you know, instead of typing in black formal dress, now you could type in black formal dress that looks like it's from the 20s and is made of velvet and beads. These very interesting trends and ideas that AI can really synthesize and get you very specific looks. You know, we talk a lot about the importance of discovery and how consumers like discovery, but I don't want to confuse that with...
Right now, the area over the past 3-4 years in tabletop has been more of the casual dinnerware. Those things that have the blended need states of like what she talked about, where I can use it when I'm having guests over and I can use it for my everyday use. This blended needs is still starting to play in other categories as well. Bedding has the same issue where we're looking for these things that used to be structured a certain way pre-pandemic, but now with this hybrid life, there's this blended needs that starts to happen and is changing the role and purposes of different categories. So one of us I want to be thinking about is how can we play into that? How does that fit how we design our kitchen? So that's the first thing I want us to take away. The second thing that I want us to take away is the role that AI is going to play in our shopping. She talked to online, but what about in-store? You ever watch somebody try to buy a vacuum? It's a challenge. Which robot? They get confused with technology. Or you try to buy a certain thing. What fits me? And there's ways that we can, when you go like to CES, there's ways that we can start applying AI online, but we can apply it in store as well to help you figure out what fits you, not only for your need, or maybe if I'm doing a wedding registry, if I'm moving into a new home, if these are the types of foods I eat, if these are the types of medical issues. And so how we do discovery, that whole process is being re-innovated as we speak. And the question is, what are we doing to be part of it? Okay, now we've talked a lot about from product perspective. Let's talk a little bit about marketing innovation. Anybody here with teenage girls? you're not going to be surprised at this. Everybody look at them that you saw. The industry that's been the hottest industry the last 3-4 years, prestige beauty. And that's where Larissa Jensen is our industry advisor for prestige beauty. And we talked a little bit about the role that social media plays into this. But what also happens is, and she'll talk about where are the viral products, so merchandising, where are those things that you put on the wall? How does that play out? But the second thing is listen to how she's doing some of the positioning of products that we can apply to ours.
We bring joy to consumers, and that's regardless of what beauty products you're buying. You know, I think that's the beauty of beauty, is that if you are in a great mood, you want to treat yourself with, you know, a new lipstick or a blush. If you are in a bad mood, you want to treat yourself to make yourself feel better. And I think that's really been the key to our resiliency, is the ability to appeal to the side of wellness that's connected to your mental wellness, which has really been a game changer for the industry since the pandemic. You know, the acceptance of mental wellness as part of a consumer's wellness journey. And beauty really hits on every level of wellness. If you think about it, the concept of tangible or intangible wellness, which is we talk about physical versus mental. And there's a beauty category that touches on every single one of those things. You can look at the physical side and think about products like sunscreen and skincare and shampoos, right? Deodorants. Those are the physical pieces. Those are the tangible pieces, and those things continue to do well. And on the flip side, you've got the categories that really touch on mood. Fragrance is a huge one for this, connected to mood and emotion, as well as makeup, hairstyling. A good hair day is very connected to mood in terms of how you're feeling about yourself that day. A good hair day or a bad hair day can make or break your day. Supportive of a resilient nature in our industry is the vast variety of products we have available across different categories and across different price points. There's literally something for everyone at any price point. And what's so incredible is with all the products we have out there, there's always something new to discover. There could be a product that has been around for a long time. We've seen this product go viral on TikTok that young consumers are blowing up over. Oh my God, this is an amazing lipstick. And okay, I was wearing it in high school, like 30 years ago. You know what I mean? But it's new to them, right? So the point being, with so much product out there, there's always something new to discover, even if it's not necessarily new. I think beauty is one of the top 5 industries that consumers are purchasing.
Thank you. So I always love her because she's always so energetic with what she has there. And I love it that there's always a product for every need at every price point that people have. But what's also interesting with what she said is I'll set it up this way. Online has been gaining share of in-store in our industry for the last 3-4 years. This fourth quarter, in-store gained share. Why? Some of the products that you're more likely to buy in-store are related to entertaining moments. Those joy moments that people have. One of the things we saw in our eating behavior last year is the number of meals of having guests and entertainment. So one of the drivers of growth last year, cheaper. Second was we entertained a bit more. And part of it is hidden into this desire for joy. You listen to the words that she's trying to say in the description that they have, follow some of the beauty and some of the language that they're using, and can you tap into that? What are some of the ways that you feel good about it? Storage and organization. In-drawer organization, in the refrigerator organization. If you organize, there's a little bit of, you just feel better about yourself. You get a new satin pillowcase, you're gonna feel better about yourself. And so the question is what are we doing to tap into the joy that the consumer is seeking? What can we do to tap into that? The other thing I want us to think about with that she had there is she talked about viral products, and I kind of skipped over some of it and dupes and stuff, but there's a line that she used of talking about Do you have a wall that illustrates here are the current hot viral products? Do you have a page on your internet, on your website that talks about it? Do you have things? But then she used this phrase, and it says, the consumer, they're looking for safety in knowing others loved this product. And we think about that path to purchase. After you become aware, part of it is this desire of confidence. Part of it is, from a financial perspective, feeling a pinch. We don't want to waste money. We want to make sure that I'm making the right choice. So what are we doing to help the consumer at the time of purchase feel confident, feel safe, that they're making the right choice of a product that they know other people loved? All right. Next one, we'll get into another driver of our industry this past year, but a subtle one, but it's an important one that gets into. So Matt is our industry advisor for sports. And ask all these guys what's driving some of their areas and some of the growth. Let's listen to what Matt has to say.
Let's start off with the plus side. So with team sports equipment, this has really been the shining star over the last couple of years. Grew 3% in 2024, largely due to the continued increases in golf and racket sports. You've probably heard a lot about pickleball. That's still helping to drive the racket sports category. And some other highlights like football, with the expansion of flag football across more consumers now, especially females. Same thing, fishing equipment grew in the mid-single digits, about 4% up. So happy to see that. We're seeing strong participation across many of these categories, but unit demand has been struggling in outdoor sports equipment, in cycling, and health and fitness equipment. These are all segments that had really high peaks and are continuing to decline, but I think we're pretty close to the bottom. Now, even within outdoor sports, there were some segments that continue to grow in 24. One being the hydration, bottles, insulated containers, which I know you also track in Housewares. And second, a lot of emergency preparedness categories. Think about all the storms and fires. So categories like portable power, freeze-dried food, portable heaters, things like that, to really set people up for preparation of the impending storms.
Okay. So I thought it's interesting, the accessories. That's a good reminder for all of us to be thinking about what are the accessories that are available. But the other thing we want to be thinking about is this emergency preparedness. So weather was one of the big drivers of our industry, even continues at this present moment. And you see this over the years constantly. What are we doing to change some of that? What are we doing to leverage it? This past year, I know I was in New Orleans when that big snow happened. It's tough to get products in, but boy, I bet if you had drones that could fly heaters in, they would have sold like crazy. Or if somebody hits those areas that are flooded, they still got to eat. So they might need ways to heat the food that is more battery operated. Do we have products that are available? Are we being agile enough, if we do have products available, to get them into their hands? Are we innovating on new ways to do that? So I want us to be thinking about what are some ways that we can help in these emergency preparedness situations, because weather continues to be able to create opportunities and a chance for us to truly help consumers at a point when they need help. All right, next one is Julie Lynette. So Julie works in our toy business, and so she'll talk a little bit about licensing, but the big thing for her is the story about the white space that they entered and how they did it. I thought was an interesting way, so let's listen to that.
The other piece I think that has really grown is licensing. Not just for kids. You might think of like Bluey or something like that, which is obviously doing phenomenally well in the toy industry, but other properties like Star Wars continues to be, after 20 years, a top 10 property in the toy industry year after year after year. So we continue to see that licensing take a larger share of the toy market. What we're talking to our clients about is the adult market, and let me tell you why. So we did start to see tremendous growth in the adult market starting during the pandemic with plush. You know, people were looking to kind of give themselves some comfort, saw strong growth. Then we started to see social media start to pick up quite a bit. Adults are heavily invested. When I say adults, I'm talking about 18 plus. Heavily invested in social media. And like communities started to congregate, so people that really had an interest in collecting plush or collecting different types of action figures like Funko, and then we started to see those communities build and kind of fed off of each other. And so we saw very strong growth in the adult market over the last 4 years, and we continued to see that this year. Ages 18 plus as a consumer of toys was our largest growth market. So taking that along with the fact that we are seeing declines in birth rates, so that the number of kids is shrinking. So we do want to give our toy companies an area where they can see some potential growth. And adult market is very underpenetrated for toys. Build them the right products and they will come, just like they did with Lego. An employee at Lego, a young woman, I think she might have even been an intern, but a young woman, super passionate about Lego. She started building bouquets of flowers for people in the office. If it was their birthday, word got around, people would come to her, can you build one for me? Can you do this? She kept doing this and it caught the eye of somebody, and they decided to turn it into a product line. And that product line has been mega successful and really targets that adult woman who for Lego was a white space opportunity. They've been trying to get at women for years and years and years, decades, that I've watched this happen. And they finally hit it with a product that really engaged adult women, and not just to buy one, they want to buy a number of them to put on their shelf and display in their homes.
Somehow I think that intern got the job. I find it fascinating to think about white space. Oftentimes we look for what's growing, but what are the other opportunities? It doesn't always have to be growing. Sometimes it's just big. So when we think about it, what are some of the white space opportunities for us that we may not be thinking about? How about kids being able to make their own meals and designing appliances and cookware that allows them to be able to operate that and make the parents feel confident? How about men over 60 who might be learning how to cook, but trying to figure out how to be healthy? How about adults 75 plus who are going to be more homebound and have difficulty getting nutritional needs and getting enough volume of food and being able to prepare foods? There's white space everywhere. But the key is looking at the white space and looking at the details and thinking about the challenges and frustrations and needs that they have, and can I somehow solve that? All right, and speaking of licenses, we're going to get to the OG of licenses right now, which is Chris McLinn works in our entertainment group, which also includes books. And so I want us to kind of hear what she talks about from subjects that are hot in books right now, as well as a little bit on licensing, what's happening at this stage. I will say, Julie, when she talks about licensing, she'll always go, what the future looks like. She's telling us the next few years are going to be very hot for licenses because there's a lot of kids' movies that are coming out. So always look at the movie industry, what those areas are. It sounds like the next few years there's going to be a string of products in that area. All right, let's listen to what Kristen says.
Well, one of the big drivers that we've had for the last few years has really been fiction and people's desire to escape. So a lot of categories like romance and fantasy and romantasy, which is the combination of those two, sci-fi, mystery, just people really want to get into a good story. I think it gives people a chance to take a break from the day-to-day stresses of their life. And we do expect that fiction is going to continue to be really strong. But we also had some bright spots in nonfiction too. The Taylor Swift book, the Eras Tour book, just crushed it in the holiday season, and that really helped lift things up. And we're seeing a lot of other interesting things happening in the nonfiction space, like health and wellness, right? So one of the big drivers in health and wellness for us in the book space is menopause. A lot of attention being paid to women's health later in life. I think that's dovetailing with also things that we're seeing in longevity and beauty. We're seeing some interesting trends in cooking. We're still seeing veganism and vegetarianism be pretty strong. The top vegan book of the year also had an emphasis on, it was called Scrappy Cooking, and it was really about how to make affordable, healthy meals. So we're seeing a lot of practical cooking going on right now, just people stretching their dollars and trying to be healthy and do it affordably right now. So that's been pretty interesting. Doing something that we call turtling, right? That sort of pulling in, tucking in at home, and doing things that make them feel good with their friends and family. So we're seeing a lot of gravitation towards nostalgia across all the categories that we look at and that are related to entertainment. And we're seeing it in video games also, right? So people are discovering and wanting to spend time in vintage games right now. They're inexpensive and they're familiar and they're fun. So I think that creates challenges, though, in the marketplace, because if we're always looking for nostalgia, and nostalgia, we're seeing it play out in CPG, how do we find room on the shelf for new things? So for me, I think this is one of the biggest questions about the next decade, because if you have...
So there's a lot of little subtleties that she has in there, similar to what you heard Paul say, similar to what you heard Larissa say, this desire to feel good. The turtling, I kind of like that. When you hear that, our industry is the prime place for that. It kind of brings us to a higher order in the consumer's mind. So I like this from this aspect. The other part that she talks about from a book's perspective, these special things, when I think of menopause, does it get the marketing that it should, given the size of people? So looking at CES this past year, there are certain products out there that people could measure their hormone balance just by, it's almost like taking their temperature. Are we able to take that and then say, okay, here with AI, then here is the prescriptive diet that you should have to help you manage yourself at that moment, the challenges that you have. And in doing so, here are the products from a Housewares and kitchen electrics that help you execute and live that life. And there's so many challenges that we have health-wise. So I think this whole technology, this whole understanding specific challenges that different groups have is going to be a huge innovation opportunity for us. Books, we used to study a time study. What do people spend their time doing? One of the growing parts of the population are people 65 plus. And the top things that you do when you retire at that time, and there's American Time Use study that the government has, if you don't look at that, but you're going to see that people will travel more, people will read more, people will spend more time in the bathroom, and they'll spend more time gardening. So from a reading perspective, as this picks up, what are those subjects? Is there a way you can insert yourself? Is there a way you can become some of the cookbooks? A lot of the TikTok-related books are also driving book sales. So be thinking how you can tie into that. All right, so in summary, we'll get into some of the areas that we have here. Separate from before all this was created, when we were doing our future of home, what are the short and long-term drivers that our industry has? And whether you know it or not, they were referenced a lot throughout this. In the short term, the reason why we're forecasting growth and success here is we still expect people to eat more at home, because as David said, it's 4 times cheaper to eat at home. And if you look historically, every time we hit tough economic times, you can bank on it. Last year, restaurant traffic declined 2%. So it's a case where that's going to increase usage of our products. The second, that joy economy, this desire to entertain and connect with others, this desire for craving for something new, this turtling that people are having, that continues to be a driver that we're going to want to make sure plays out this year and continues. Replacements, we have hit that. And as Paul said, we need some of those innovations, those little micro innovations that people have to help drive it, as well as some of the social media demands to help solve it, and in the short term, products that solve the new set of pains and frustration that the consumer has. Weather, we talked a little bit about Matt, how that drives things at this present moment. In fact, home comfort is up high single digits so far this year already. Home improvement, we've been looking, there's a whole group of people who bought homes in 2020 and 21, And all of them have got on this home improvement bandwagon, right? All of us who own a home, you know, once you do one project, it's like eating a potato chip. You can't stop, right? So now the question is it cheaper to do a kitchen remodel or maybe some home decor? And that's part of the reason why home decor was one of the fastest growing areas in the home industry this past year. Is it cheaper then maybe just to upgrade your bedding? Is it cheaper then maybe to upgrade your cookware, your tabletop? What are ways that we can make what the essence of home improvement is to feel better about my house, to add spice and something new? Is there a way that we can play into that? From a longer term perspective, at some point, this return to office is going to impact time. Now, what separates a trend from a fad? Basically, we all like new, but it's that new thing that either saves us money or saves us time. And this return to office is going to impact time. We listen to what Kristen said, we listen to what David said. There's going to be a new set of needs that we're going to need to solve. And that's going to fuel some growth opportunities and innovation. There is a home bubble. The average age of the first-time buyer has increased dramatically. And as that does, once that bubble starts to burst, it's probably going to take 3 years to go through that bubble. That's going to open the door for us. And then the path to purchase innovations, you heard several things today talking about how AI can play a part of that and how other innovations to make it easier to feel more confident, to be inspired, to make the transaction easier, to get the product easier, to build that relation. That whole process has innovation going across the board. That will continue as well. And then demographics are in our favor. If you look at the growing parts of the population, you got the 20 to 24-year-olds, so you got basically those off-campus students or people moving into their first homes. You've got the 30 to 49-year-old, those people who have their first homes and kids and start developing their cooking repertoire and start entertaining more at home. The math is in our favor for that group. And it's 65 plus, which can be broken down to people traveling and experiencing that part of life and entertaining. And then another group, once you get in your late 70s, more homebound. All those groups are people that we can help. There's a lot of movement that's happening in those groups that creates. So we see a lot of the growth when we look at our geo data happening in those areas where people are moving or in college towns. We see a lot of growth happening in each of these areas because of the growing population. All right, so with this, I'm going to end you with one last thing. I threw all those people off when I had them record, and I said, so this audience here, as a consumer, what advice, what thoughts would they have? And believe it or not, they gave some great suggestions.
They continue to be more and more interesting and a larger and larger piece of our diet, even though a lot of proteins are expensive, not all proteins, but some of them are. I'm doing a lot with, I'm cooking skirt steak any which way I can right now and just having a lot of fun with that. I find that to be a really fun protein to be cooking with right now. I'm sure I'll be on to something else. Chicken thighs also, I'm having a lot of fun with those as well. So I think anything that your clients can think about with protein and the GLP-1 trend, I'm sure you're showing them the slide at some point of people that are on these GLP-1 and on this journey. Their purchasing habits change, and they will be leaning into your industry to help them with their journey, for sure.
As someone who loves to cook and has young kids, make sure that you're paying attention to the next generation. I think so many young people are eager to learn self-reliance, and being able to cook for yourself is a huge part of that. So as you think about high-income consumers or more mature consumers, we know what it means to cook. We buy the products, we have the spending ability. But I think a younger generation maybe is getting, ignored about this. And I see this in my own household, and I teach my kids to cook. I try to invite them into the kitchen as often as possible to help me out and learn a technique or learn how something works. But I have a feeling that is somewhat of a rarity in this day and age. So I would really, pay attention to the next generation. They'll be your consumers.
Yeah, so it's funny because I am now officially an empty nester, so I'm not feeding very much of my family anymore because my boys have gone off to college. But I will say this, when they come home, one of the first things we pop out is the air fryer. Because the ability to use that and create easy, quick meals that feel restaurant quality, to be honest, that also are healthy.
Can we get something that cooks for me that I could, go run some errands and pick up the kids and I come home to a fully cooked dinner? So I will. One thing I would love is, I don't know if it's with the use of AI, if there's something that can do this, but could just tell me what I could make with what I have. Scanning my fridge, scanning my pantry, in between running to this board and that board if I don't need to make a stop to pick up, broccoli or spinach for a recipe. Just, hey, this is what I have. This is what you can make. That's kid friendly too. That would be amazing.
Say just easier ways to work with fresh fruits and vegetables, because it takes so much time for me. My meal prep time is huge, because I have to wash everything and do it ahead of time, and you can't, do that at the last minute because then your lettuce is limp. So I don't know. For me, it's about saving time and reducing.
All right, well, I thank you guys. Hopefully it was a creative way. Sometimes it's different to where do you come up with ideas of creativity, sometimes an outside-in perspective. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Join me in
about
thanking
that
Joe Derochowski. Joe, I'd also like you, when you have a moment, to thank all of the industry experts and advisors that participated in today's very, very unique, very informative, very special presentation. And I know it takes a village. There's people in your team out here that played a role in helping you pull this really massive undertaking together. I know I learned a lot about stuff I didn't expect to learn today. I want a raise of hands of people who feel the same way. I expect to see them all. Come on, let's go. I have one question to start with, Joe, and then we're going to try to squeeze a couple in. You get to speak to a lot of retailers of all types.
Yep.
You're in the executive suite, very often high up. Are they thinking cross-industry the same way you're sort of prescribing that right now, more so perhaps than the industry might be thinking it?
Well, at the highest levels, yes, they're thinking cross-industry and trying to figure out the overall consumer spend that people are getting at. In the home area, what they're really thinking about is specifically, how do they grow? Like, this has been a challenge. We've had a few years of decline. And so at that time, the sole focus really the last year or so was, how do I grow? How do I really take off? And so what's going on with the consumer, and as you heard Jeff, if you sat in today, that consumer understanding, that consumer knowledge is really critical of what's going on with them and how you fit in.
You're seeing the traditional buying silos that we are all used to for many years, sort of breaking down a little bit with the common bond, the connecting bridge, the consumer.
The desire absolutely is there, yes.
Good. Let's take a couple quick questions. I know we're tight for time. Anyone else have some questions right now? Anyone? Don't be shy.
Can be on the home industry just itself.
Okay, hold on just a moment. We'll get you a microphone.
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering if you can guide us to find ways to identify these white space opportunities, because I think it's very interesting, and I'm wondering what could be some questions we can ask ourselves to identify those opportunities.
Well, there's a couple things I think there are research techniques that you can use to really get at it. So I'll kind of put that to the side, and a team can help you with that. But from a simplest perspective, I try to understand who your consumer is and who your consumer is not. And then amongst that group that is not, I would first of all look at the growing parts of the population. Because if you think about what is a trend, you want to know what the next trend is, it's really simple. That growing parts of the population that I said, which is the 20 to 24-year-old, the 10 to 14-year-olds, and the 30 to 49 and 65 plus. Their wishes and frustrations, if you think about it, it's their change in behavior times a change in the number of bodies. We know that number of bodies is growing, so if you can somehow tie into their needs, their pains and frustrations, that's where the money is. If you have a solution or a technology that can build into that, I like heading down that path. Now, there's other ways you can understand who your consumer is, and we have a service called checkout tracking that tracks out like your longitudinally everything that you buy, so it can really see what your share of wallet is, your consumers, and what are those categories that are big and growing amongst that group that you also can play in, and there's a whole other set of techniques. But one of the white spaces is I like to look at those demographics. Two demographics that sometimes gets missed is we always hear about Hispanics and that being a growing part of the population. We don't do a good enough job marketing to that group at all, trying to solve. The second group that doesn't get enough thing, the group that's actually going to increase the most from a percent perspective, not a size, but percent change, the Asian population is going to more than double by 2050. So are we marketing, are we building products based off of their dietary needs? Not always, probably not to the degree that we should be.
One more quick one if we have one. And Joe will stick around for a couple of minutes, and I encourage you to take his information, which is on the screen right now. If you have any questions, direct them to us. And a note, we're going to be covering all of these sessions on Homepage News. The IHA will be sending out some correspondence, and there will be videos of this. We got one more question, one here. Rob.
Hey, Rob. Good to see you again.
Thanks, hey, Joe. You know, you show units staying relatively flat, right? Up a point, up 2 points. But you know online is growing, so safe to assume that brick and mortar sales units are going to decline.
Well, that's possible. It depends also on some of the innovation that starts to happen in store, just like we said what happened in the fourth quarter. It really is changing how that is going to play out from a shopping perspective that's built into these forecasts. But what I can tell you right now is I expect this industry to grow from a units perspective. I expect dollars even to be a little bit better. There is, you know, to quote Dorothy, there's no place like home. Like if I had to bet somewhere, if I could be all those other industries and I could be somewhere between now and 2030, it's home. Because of what they said, because of being more home-centric, because of the needs, because we're hitting the replacements at this moment, because we got bubble bursts and some of the life moments happen, because the math from a demographics are in our favor, there's no doubt in my mind this is the industry to be in. Right now, this is the best place to be.
Thank you, Joe.